All right, you see it in presentation mode?
Yep, looks good.
All right. So we are Neo Technologies, and we're building a decentralized internet by selling network servers directly to users. We take the place of the router on their network, and we supply local subscription, or I'm sorry, local access to tools, information, and communications without the need for subscriptions, even when infrastructure fails. This week's interviews showed us that we actually might have a market in urban areas. Up till now, we've been researching only rural users, but we're finding that the urban users actually have just as much, if not more, concern for infrastructure failure, given that they're in a densely populated area. What we have to learn from this is that this community, while they might be interested, they put a bigger emphasis on a need for battery backups as they don't have as much access to solar panels, backup batteries, generators, that kind of thing. So we would be manufacturing these servers ourselves and distributing them to our users. We would sell directly to preppers and homesteaders that have a private network, but we'd also be selling to the bunker builders and resiliency planners that build these solutions for people so that they could actually sell our solution to their customers. We would be seeking early evangelists through online influencers, but also our early customers will be a big part of our influencer network because the more people that they know that have our product, the stronger and more resilient their network becomes. So because we are replacing the network router, we do see that as our largest possible market of $1.39 billion annually, or globally, I'm sorry. But our initial beachhead market is the smaller prepper homesteader subsection of the US residential router sales market. So to this prepper and homesteader community, we're offering network and communication security on top of their existing network, but we're also adding reliable access to information and contacts even when the internet that they have goes out. And we're reducing their reliance on online subscription services, even the internet itself.
So that was only about 2 minutes, 10 seconds. So even if we had 3 minutes, you still would have had time. Even though it sounds good, oh, I finished with time to spare. That means if you were given time,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't use enough of it to explain or give more information in detail. So always try and fit the time that you're given. Don't exceed it, but use what you're given. And I'll stand aside and let people take it. Who else
Can I
is
make a
interested?
comment?
Yes, please.
Could you go to your ecosystem map, please?
Yeah.
So this is the first time I've seen your presentation,
Mm-hmm.
and you like bunker builders, NAS, you're using words that I'm too stupid to understand. So I don't understand who those are. And I guess my point is that you need to make it clear who we're talking about. SAS is the only one I understand on there.
Okay, would you like me to explain real quick, or you just want to look
No,
at
that's fine. I mean, I'm just making the point that, you got to assume that your audience is not technically oriented,
it? Mm-hmm.
especially when you're talking to people who are VCs or you're looking for funding. They're not going to understand the tech that you're an expert in, and you need to understand that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, I'll make a statement along those lines. It's like um, what you're doing is you're creating an alternative, actually physical uh, private network.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for when the infrastructure fails, because the your normal network access has gone down.
Yes.
And so you use terms like that. It's like the absolute the infrastructure's going down. It's like it's simple. It's like, hey, Verizon Fios went down for like millions of people today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this solution could be like, well, when that happens, you have this fallback. So it's not a virtual private network, it's a physical private network that if you use your system, it's a backup plan. Um, so use that as like, okay, my network's gone down, I have no access, and our solution is going to fill the gap during those situations.
Okay.
John, I'm kind of wondering if that's more of a feature that I don't understand. I mean, I think I sort of understand because I've heard them say it so many times, but whether or not a virtual versus a physical, but we could have this discussion all night. I just want to see if there's any other comments, but I agree that defining too much and using jargon is never a good idea on slides. I see we have Francisca here.
Yeah. Can you show me your summary for your customer discovery interviews?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Now, explain this to me again very quickly. What are the things that surprise you during your interviews?
That we had someone that was the first person that we interviewed that was not a rural user. He was urban, and he was more interested in it than some of the other people that we interviewed. And so that kind of shifted our focus on we actually do have a possible customer base in urban areas where we've just been targeting rural people from up till now.
I always find that interesting when you make an interview and you're surprised by the result. It's worth deeper investigation.
Can I go?
Yep.
On the same slide. How do you come up with your sum? Observation, you don't have to answer me. But remember, like here, you have to make an assumption. You told me, okay, I'm gonna do this in California. Tell me like, okay, the assumption is like, I went over there to the census or whatever in a database and I found that 3 million Californians go outside or they're in an outdoorsy or they like to do the outdoors and show us your assumption, how you came up with your 300,000. And another actually discuss this with your mentor because you go with a TAM that is really big, 3.5 billion to some, I don't know what is going to be your SAM in dollar. And I mean, you go with, okay, you go from 1 billion to 500 million and then to 300,000. It's a very drastic reduction. So work with your mentor on that.
I just want to add on to Francisca's comments that, and this is something for everybody, is it's okay in this market size slide if you put, the calculations you did, 20% of such and such people use this, or this assumes that, these many people are doing that, whatever. So tell us a little bit on this slide sometimes if you make some assumptions or some kind of calculations based upon a larger number. But anyhow, so we have Doug next with a question there.
I'm going to pile on here. This TAM is really confusing to me. I don't know how you got to 1.5 billion from all this information you have on the left there, 3.5 billion, 4.5 billion, and all the percentages. Simplify it so that it's really clear. It says, okay, here's the total market. We're looking at this part of it for TAM. So in other words, make it simple. It's simple to understand, basically. Okay, but I liked your overall presentation. I think it's an interesting idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question. Can you go to your ecosystem slide? Okay, I'm wondering how you came to why you're assuming that the FCC is an influencer, because I would think influencing is more like what may influence.
I guess we see it more as like a regulator. They have like the regulations, and we have to fall under that for our product to be able to sell our product and have our customers use it to fall under the correct. I guess we use like the ISM to fall. We're regulated under that. I guess a regulator is a better term than influence.
Yeah. So I would, it's a regulation. It's something you have to comply with that, but they're not going to influence the market. If anything, they'll stop it. And go to your questionnaire thing. What lessons learned? The communications with different devices adds more value. Is that really an insight, or is that what your business is based on?
what we mean by that is the person who we interviewed with this is they use, for example, like a Garmin InReach, but the Garmin InReach can only communicate with another Garmin InReach. But for example, if someone else had like a different device, they would want to be able to communicate with that. That's like something that we weren't thinking of doing. To be honest, I don't know how. It sounds very difficult to do as of right now, but it was something that we were like, you know what, that is actually a very cool idea if different products communicate with different products in that sense.
So it's augment or replace the existing what they might have. Okay.
My Android doesn't talk to my wife's Apple phone. Well, it doesn't video share with my wife's Apple phone.
Yeah.
We have TolerAir next. Am I saying that right? Is it TolerAir? TolerAir?
Yeah. Actually, it's kind of like close to the Spanish for tolerance.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I'm David Lowe. I'm sort of a last minute sub for this. TolerAir is a company that's developing therapeutics to treat lung inflammatory disease from environmental toxins. And our team is Keziah Israel Gale, who's our lead, and Dr. Carolyn McGowan, who's our pediatrics clinical lead. We have mainly focused our interviews on clinicians, although in the past week we interviewed people from biotech and marketing industry to get some insights on that aspect. The lessons this is accumulated from the other interviews so far is that clinicians are well aware of the link between environmental exposures and asthma type symptoms because of the inability to adequately address a lot of the clinical management. There's been more of a drive to include more inhaled corticosteroids, which is not a popular approach, but that's where the recommendations go. So part of what we are reflecting from our research and so on is that there's not just the drug development aspect, but there's a whole educational aspect. So it's education of patients, education of clinicians, as well as insurance coverage to make sure that they understand the value of this particular therapeutic approach. So the insights include both not just the drug development aspect of developing the therapeutic, but also the educational aspect, both from the clinical as well as the insurance coverage aspect. And we hope to get into more of that kind of with additional interviews with additional clinical and other healthcare management components. I appreciate this. I understand this is a fairly complex ecosystem map, and it reflects again the fact that we have different aspects that need to be addressed. There's a regulatory aspect with the FDA for new drug development, clinical trials, all of those kinds of aspects, but also from the clinician side in terms of education of what this new clinical disease entity is and how this therapeutic is a new approach that will replace some of the existing inadequate therapeutic approaches. And then from the point of view of the healthcare providers, insurance, and healthcare networks to try to understand the value of actually providing the appropriate diagnostic and therapeutic approaches for this newly identified clinical disease entity. So the competition, though, then is basically where the existing status quo is, as I said, recognized by clinicians as inadequate to the task of managing, especially the subset of asthma-type symptoms that are actually produced by environmental toxins, and needs to be, as I said, part of an educational program, but also to get pharmaceuticals to understand there's value in incorporating this therapeutic approach into their drug treatment portfolios. The market size then is a little bit more of that again as well. So the global market in the inhalers largely for treating asthma, and then is a $39 billion market that includes rescue inhalers as well as inhaled corticosteroids. But then down to the US market and then down to the California market based on population and the estimated similar percentage of patients that have asthma and are treated with the inhalers. Now, the reason the target market thing is a box on the side is because we are proposing with a new definition of a non-allergic, environmentally induced environmental toxin lung disease that it is estimated to be 10% of the asthma population. And so that's why the target market is 10% of in California is 10% of the California total inhaler market, where we seek to replace the existing therapeutic inhalers with the more appropriate blocking of the environmental toxin inflammatory effect. The data, as you can see there on the left, is coming from estimates of what the actual market is in the global inhaler market, as well as the percentage of people with asthma, all the way down to, the local target market. So I think there we go. Okay, so value proposition is that we have identified a novel disease that is a subset of asthma, that is a non-allergic disease that caused by environmental toxins, and that since there is no actual diagnostic as well as an approved therapeutic to target this disease, that's an important value proposition. Our customer segment, it's not, of course, our patients who would actually be given the therapeutic, but we're also targeting the clinicians that need to be educated to the existence of this novel disease syndrome, as well as the agencies that would regulate the approval of the drugs, as well as the physician organizations that would advocate for this as a primary management plan for the identifying and treating that clinical entity. So that is our goal. In the long run, we think that it could be a global market because this is a product of climate change and drying water bodies and environmental toxins that are being generated as a result of that. So.
Okay, so you're at about 6 minutes now, so that's way over time.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I know that you were just filling in, so that's kind of understandable, but definitely whoever is presenting, practice, practice, practice. Real quick, a couple of things. It didn't come through on your first slide. It only came through when you were talking about education on your interview slide. And then finally on your market slide, where you talked about 10% of them were the non-allergenic cases that you're looking at. It wasn't clear that you were addressing a subset until much later, and that caused some confusion. But it also would affect your market slide, so that I think all of your numbers should have been 10%. I don't know who your mentor is, but just address that and just refer to that subpopulation throughout, so it's clear as to what group you're addressing. I want to get to Francisca because we're going to be short on time.
Very quickly along those lines, in terms of consistency, Dr. Lu, over here, you're saying that your customer segment is clinicians. When you go to your slide, when you're showing the ecosystem map, you actually put your customer as the insurance companies. So maybe I'm wrong, but and I think you have your end users as those clinicians when you put hospital in that block. Work with your mentor in terms of that consistency. You don't have to answer right now, but make sure that like what you put on the first slide, what you put on the last slide in this business model canvas, actually it's consistent throughout every single slide. Keep that in mind. It's like my customer segment is clinicians. My value proposition is the reduction of asthma symptoms. So if you use that in all those slides, it's gonna be easier for you to develop each of the slides.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of got complicated because, you can appreciate that anytime you turn on the TV, the drug companies are trying to sell to the patients and not to the doctors or insurance companies. And that definitely makes it more complicated.
Yeah. Doug, you got a little bit of time left.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting comment. What Eric said is, you're a percentage of the inhaler market. And essentially, as a new product, you're almost like a blue pool in a red ocean, because you've got a lot of really big competitors, but you're trying to define yourself as different from them. So I think especially in next week's slide, the competitors, you're going to have an interesting complication to make that work. But I concur with what Eric said, is that you need to consider the fact that you're really a subset of the inhaler market.
I love what you said, a blue pool and a red ocean.
From a clinical therapeutic management point of view, I mean, I understand, I appreciate what you're saying. However, anytime, for example, a new anti-cancer drug comes out, guess what? They test it against every cancer under the sun. So it may or may not end up being that distinct in the long run.
But you will have an educational battle. I noticed that you caught on to that in some of the interviews, that that
Right.
is something that will probably come up often. But we are just about out of time. If there's no one else with a quick thing to say, if we go on, let's see who's next. Green Balance is next.
Hi, my name is Ning Liu. Our company is Green Balance. Our product is the software solution to track and report greenhouse gas emission, mainly to help companies, organizations to comply with the Senate Bill 253 or SEC's corporate responsibility reporting. The hypothesis we're testing is mainly target UC campuses to make sure if UC region has the mandatory emission report requirement, and campus will comply. And if there's software solution that can reduce the cost and also improve the accuracy, the organization will consider to adopt the solution. Two main takeaway from last week's interview is several UC campuses lack of resources. They don't have enough people to do this, and cause the deadline being missed. And also on the other side, they try to look for a out-of-box solution from software vendors, and so far, because there are different configurations and unique requirement, and they couldn't find any out-of-box solutions that suit their needs. The insight is there is potential for a niche market to highly customizable solutions, and um, it it really gives us a chance to explore more. So that's our next step, to talk to more with UC campus. Also, we would like to explore beyond the UC campus to see what's outside market in terms of emission tracking and reporting. Our eco map, our ecosystem map, consists of the influencers, both from government side. They push the Senate bills. SEC push the regulations, require annual reporting. On the other side, you have California Resource Board to decide what need to be reported in terms of emission. So those are influencers. Our main customer will be the business that's subject to those regulation, and also customers have initiative to met for sustainability. The competitor is large companies have software packages they try to sell to the customer, include emission tracking, but the saboteur are the lobbyists to anti-emission, anti-climate change kind of lawsuits. And we also can have partners from those CARB certified partners who does the auditing for the reporting. So on this market size, the global emission tracking reporting is almost like 16.1 billion in 2003, but they also have a accumulated growth rate of 22%. So projected by 2032, it will be a 1.2 billion size market globally. Largely contribute this is EU regulation. Our SAM is 180 million in California. The way we calculate this is by the 5,400 companies that's subject to the Senate Bill 253. Each company spends $35,000 per year on software or resource to capture the emission. That come up number was $189 million in California alone. And the sum, we revised our calculation to use top down. So we assume we can capture 1%, which is 54 organizations emission reporting will yield $1.8 million. Our value proposition is cost saving. Will lower the cost down for legal compliance on reporting and save your time and easy of use. Also, we have the accuracy. Our customer segment is still the UC sustainability officers at this point. That's all. Thank you.
It was about 30 seconds over, not bad. If you could go back to your market size, the market size there. I said before that putting some explanations in the sides is always good. Too much and in small print is really an eyesore. So just put just enough that's going to make it useful to the audience reading this for the first time. I also noticed that this is all contingent upon, well, two things. One is California emissions standards, because guess what? We had an election and emission standards have changed for this country. Maybe not for California, but certainly the rest of the country. But you did pick up the EU emission. So if this is translatable around the world, maybe you'll still have a market outside of California. I didn't see, what was the last value proposition on your backside there? Accuracy. I don't think I heard that being discussed in your slides. It's the first time I noticed it was here, but maybe I wasn't paying attention. Who was next? I'll let somebody else talk here. Other than Doug. We don't want to hear from Doug.
Yeah, I'll take go to your market slide again. You made an assumption that you're assuming each company spends an average of $35,000 per year on software resources for this problem. Question is like, what brought you to that assumption? And to me, that seems like really small, or they don't care to comply if that's all the money they're going to put towards it. So it's something to think about. It's like when you have to comply to a new regulation, but then you're not going to put corporate resources to it. And because that was my takeaway from that. It's like they really don't care to comply. if they're all going to spend 35 grand.
Good point. Are there fines associated with not complying? That
yes, it's up to $500,000 fine if you're not complying.
Okay, so that would be something to put down there, that there's a threat.
Yeah,
to comply.
Yeah, the non-compliance. What the repercussions are? What did you say? $500,000?
Yeah, $500,000.
Oh, so that's a decent bet. Yeah, 35 grand against 500,000. I'd make that bet as CFO.
Depends on who the company is, but yeah.
Yeah, that's all I could. That's the takeaway I have right now. Yeah.
Francisca has her hand up. Let's see if she.
Okay, I have a couple. Stay on this one. I agree with less is more. Try to just rephrase this and say like the global market specs, 60 billion and something like that. But on that note, Ning, I want you to explain how you came out with your 1% of your sum, okay? Why 1%?
Okay.
You don't have to answer to me right now.
Okay.
But with that said, when the statement that you said about the fees, I want you to consider putting that in your business model canvas as your value proposition. Because if you move to your last slide, right there where you're saying your value propositions, cost savings. Right there, you can actually tell us that, you can help this company avoid that fee. Work with your mentor on how you can use. I think it's a valuable piece of information that you're saying, I'm offering help, and I'm offering this help that will translate onto saving yourself or getting a fine. But work with your mentor on that.
Sure.
Could you go to the interview slide? I'm just wondering, I'm just looking at this savings time. Wow, a lot of print. Again, try and keep the words to a minimum. Did I see ease of tracking? Not all organizations willing to comply. Accuracy is a secondary concern, so not really interested in accuracy. And that was to John's point, was that not all organizations are willing to comply, because if they figure, well, it's going to cost us 35,000 to put this in, and it's $500,000 if we get caught, they'll say like, well, if we get caught. Be interesting to find out in your interviews, don't ask them if they're violating the law, but say, in your opinion of what you talk about, of what others in the industry are saying, do you think a lot of people are not reporting? And that way they don't have to implicate themselves. Nobody's going to implicate themselves. But if they say, as an expert in the field, I hear that people are, half of them are not complying, 90% of them are not complying. It'll give you a sense of how many of them are just willing to take the risk and walk away, like John said.
Okay.
Be an interesting question.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Who do we have next? Field Safe.
All right. So, all right, can everyone see?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect. I'm Aaron Trejo with FieldSafe. What FieldSafe hopes to do is develop and sell a hardware device worn by field and construction laborers to address the approximately 2.5 million workplace injuries that happen annually in America in the workplace. Ultimately reducing fiscal liability for operation owners and executives while maintaining the well-being of laborers. We had about 3 new interviews this week. I know we're short on interviews, but we have a lot lined up for next week. So a total of 6 interviews. There we go. So we interviewed a safety manager from an electrical contracting firm and a special projects group manager from the same firm. Basically, they were very frank with us. We learned that pricing is very pivotal to the application of the product to get it actually to the buyers. There's not a very large need for this product right now. So our insights derived from that is that our price needs to be tailored. I guess our next relevant one would be that our workers, when it comes to the more technical and health aspects of this, workers don't recognize their health risks until basically it's too late and they're already out of work. So we need a product pertaining directly to our technology that not only detects symptoms while they're there, but as well as risk factors to those symptoms. This is our ecosystem map. Obviously, we are field safe. We hope to get our product to our buyers, which, like I said before, include contracting, construction, and contracting firms, and our agricultural corporations. Those are our primary ones. Our primary influencers are regulators, given that agriculture and construction and worker safety are very highly regulated fields. Competitors include basically companies that already have health monitoring devices, not necessarily as niche as tailored towards agriculture and construction, but those are our primary saboteurs and competitors. So regarding our market size, for our total available market, we measured the wearable healthcare devices market as a whole. So we see about 50.2 billion now. It is a growing market though. So by 2020, it's prospected to be at 60.2 billion. So yeah, for our SAM, we tailored it down to the United States. So with a approximate 8.7 million laborers in the United States and a price point of about $250, we see about $2.1 billion serviceable available market. Regarding our SOM, we tailored it down even more to California. So we see about 243,000 potential users in California, and at a price point of $250 equates to 60.775 million. And our value proposition. So ultimately, our primary one is reduce workers' compensation claims by up to 20%. So ultimately, like I said, in our business thesis, reduce fiscal liability for operations executives. Next, hopefully increase worker productivity while also capitalizing on saving healthcare and healthcare costs. All of this will hopefully be within the restraints of ensuring compliance with regulatory standards as of our primary influencers. And as I said before, our customer segment is construction and agriculture operations managers and safety managers.
Okay, it was about 3 minutes, 40 seconds. You still had some time. Doug had his hand up before I kept talking here, so I'm gonna let him go first.
So could you go to your first slide? Oh, you already took it down. There's a lot of words there. I would recommend that you try and make it a little more concise, your business thesis I'm talking about. And the other thing you said was that, let me make sure I understand, that you noticed that you didn't think that your device people were interested in purchasing your device. Is that correct?
There's not a significant need for it. So there is interest and it could be a benefit. However, there's no, I guess, yearning need for it. So
that's a really important piece of learning, because one of the main things in this class is to figure out if you have a sustainable business. And if your customers are saying, well, we're really not interested, that's a very important thing. And I think that's something you need to really explore in your future interviews. That's my comment, is something you need. That's very important for you to understand in the next couple of weeks. So thank you.
This is the first time I see your pitch. Okay, so Aaron, what is the hardware device that you are selling? What is it? A hat?
It would be a monitor, a very low profile monitor, ideally placed on the arm, that is not intrusive, but that tracks metrics such as blood oxygen levels and stuff of that sort to detect for hydration. And it would be small and worn by laborers. So that's the premise of our technology.
Yeah.
But we were told to kind of veer away from the technology.
No, it's okay. But the reason why I'm asking you is because I encourage you to rephrase this, even though you're not going to go into the technology, but you can use simple words to say, I'm doing this device to measure that. Okay, what you just told me.
Yeah.
But I'm curious because when you go to your market size, I think you need to consider that as well, because you're going with the TAM. It's the wearable healthcare devices. It's kind of broad. Work with your mentor on this, because I think you're going with the whole enchilada instead of the sub-market of these wearable devices. Work with them. There's probably a little bit of fine-tuning on that.
I was in a biotech conference last week, and the question was asked, was a healthcare biotech. Question was asked, how many of you are wearing personal monitors? They didn't ask what it was or what it did or what it was for. More than half the people in the audience raised their hands. And I guarantee you none of them were construction workers. So yeah, I definitely agree with Francisca here. You want to say, not what the world is doing, but what people in this particular space. Maybe you just do it by number. If construction and ag tech workers are 10% or 5% of the world's workforce, then if 50 billion is all wearable devices, then you're only 10% or 5% or whatever the numbers are. But that's way too big of a number to start with.
Yeah, and I have a suggestion. It's like at your first slide, you're actually kind of defining what the problem is. And so the problem is your first slide, but is the economic impact of if the worker, construction labor, field construction labor, is so high. The economic impact that if their health is bad, it's going to impact the economic owner, who's the farm or construction company. So that's the problem. You want to reduce that incidence of their health things. And then, oh, by the way, the possible solution is a wearable or some device that's going to monitor the well-being of that person at that time. So that's a different way to look at it, is here's the problem, and then how are you going to solve it? Oh, it happens to be a specialized wearable. So that's how well so the disconnect between what your TAM is and the problem. The problem, then what your solution is just connect those dots.
Doug? Doug, you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think John brought up an important point. In California, a lot of companies are leaving the state because workers' comp is by far the biggest expense they have compared to other states. You might just consider that and how that might impact what you're trying to do, specifically in California, because the workman's comp expenses are as much as 2 or 3 times what they are in Arizona, Nevada, some of the surrounding states. And a lot of companies choose to locate somewhere else just because of that one issue.
And just like green balance, the market may be very reduced outside of California. You may get people that are here may want to buy it because it reduces their liability. But if you're in Arizona, who cares? It's worth questioning.
Got it.
All right. Is that it? I think we're actually finished with 2 or 3 minutes to spare. So, Francisca, you want to wrap up with any words of great, insightful knowledge that will lead us forward?
Well, work with your mentor on this. Remember, these are live documents, okay? So what you did for this week, you're allowed to go and change them, okay? Work with your mentor on this and also continue doing customer discovery interviews, because the more customer discovery interviews that you conduct, you will learn more about this, okay? And that will help you tremendously.
I saw some good discoveries. It sounded like some new stuff. You need education for TolerAir. You're looking at different markets for, was it Neotech? There were some breakthrough discoveries in what people were hearing. So don't be afraid to reach out to more people. Always reach out to more people. All right. If nothing else,